damn the surgeries and all that, so he ain't did the work. He hasn't did the work on the extremities that he's had worked on, right? Mm-hmm. If it's knee issues, you need to work on it. I can speak on this because...
and I'm on the other side.
Two microfracture surgeries, patella surgery. Like, I didn't been there, right? Mm-hmm. Major knee surgeries, missed time, missed whole season. Played the first 2 games, had to miss the whole 80 games, play all that shit, been there, done that. Played after, because it was important to me. Me being on that floor was important to me, right? It's not important enough to him, because he's not doing the extra stuff. He's not doing the rehab. He's not putting the extra time in.
You got to put the work in.
He's not doing that like I said, I told him I did that CPM machine, at least 8 hours a day. I'm sleeping in it. Wow. So I'm doing the stuff in order to get back on the floor, because that shit meant something to me. I don't think it means enough. He's getting paid either way it goes, so he's like, fuck it. Right? It has to mean something.
As you heard from the clip, Kenyon Martin was very passionate on the topic in relations to the Joel Embiid situation of him being injured a lot and him not allegedly taking his conditioning and his injury serious. Now, Kenyon, like he said, he had a unique perspective on injuries in his career because he broke his leg in college. And looking up his injury, I didn't realize it happened in the Pyramid in Memphis, Tennessee, which is a Bass Pro Shop now, the biggest Bass Pro Shop that they have. So that was very interesting to know, because I remember when I was in school in Memphis around this time, and I think it was 2000 when he got injured. I was in school, and the teacher was telling us, hey, make sure you guys get your education, because, he was telling us the story of Kenyon Martin and how he got injured and why it's important to get an education to have that to fall back on. Now, even back then as a kid, I would want to say, well, if I was an athlete, at least I can try to, do as much as I can, but I have to give it a try. I'm just not going to go primarily on education if I have that opportunity. But looking at it now, it makes sense to why you should always get your education and you'll have something to fall on. But, it's a sad story either way, tragic story of Kenyon Martin's career. But luckily he was able to surpass that and make a productive career for himself. And his son plays now for the Philadelphia 76ers. And he's on the podcast now, so he's able to tell this story and then things like that. But he was very passionate about this topic because he is a nonsense guy, and he's all about, taking things serious and putting forth his best effort. Even on the podcast, on most shows that he used to be on in the past, he really didn't give much of an opinion and said it was none of his business pretty much. And I used to say, why was he on the show if he's not going to give his opinion? But on the Gills Arena, he gives his opinion, and he's very passionate about it always. And it seems like he coming from an aggressive point, but this is just the seriousness that he takes things. But Kenyon Martin, he talked about all the sacrifices that he did, the CPM machine that he used to like sleep in and do 8 hours a day to try to get his ankle, maybe get his knee back right. And, you could tell from his knees that he had scarring from the surgeries and things like that. So it was a hindrance in his career. He was still drafted number 1 overall that next year, even due to the injury that showed you what his skill set was. And he used to be one of my favorite players, when he played for the Nets and the Nuggets and things like that. He had a unique game. He was a 2-foot jumper. He used to dunk with 2 hands a lot. So he had a unique perspective, but he was a tough guy, and he didn't really take any crap from anyone on the court or off the court. But he made a good point when he talked about Joel Embiid's injuries, because there was an issue a lot of times throughout Joel Embiid's career that he didn't take the game serious enough. He was one of the most talented big men next to Hakeem Olajuwon, but he never take the regimen serious and taking his training serious and his dieting and things like that seriously. And he always stayed injured, whether it be his knee, which I believe he had meniscus issues. He would have some kind of stomach issues. He would have all these nagging injuries due to people's believing that he wasn't conditioning right and had the proper diet. So Kenyon Martin was very passionate about like, hey man, you got to take this stuff serious if you really want to be on that court. Because I did. Um, Personally, after that conference loss to the Toronto Raptors in the Eastern Conference Finals that year, when he was crying going to the locker room, I thought he would take the game more serious, and it seemed like he did for a while because he did win an MVP after that. It seemed like he was slimming down, and you know, he was playing like 40 minutes a night. So it seems like he was doing everything he needed to do, but it seems like he took a step back recently. I don't know if it's something that's genetic. Who knows? Like only his team knows, or maybe no one knows yet because they haven't found out. But it's just sad to see injuries like that, and a lot of injuries that we've seen throughout the careers of these NBA players and NFL players as well, but specifically NBA players. Um, those basketball tragedies where you have a Derrick Rose, Zion Williamson, a Grant Hill, or even Kenyon Martin himself. These players that were destined to be the next greats, but they were set back by these injuries. Derrick Rose, when he won an MVP and then he got the injury afterwards, he was never the same. He put up a 50-point game with the Timberwolves, but then, he went to the Cavs and he went to the Knicks and it wasn't the same anymore. And he retired recently, late last year. But unfortunately, we didn't see the prime Derrick Rose we thought we would have saw because he won the MVP. He was the youngest MVP ever, I believe, at the age of 22 or 23. And he never got a chance to reach his prime because he got injured. And it was a very sad situation. And the same thing for Zion. He's having those conditioning type issues where he's getting the hamstring issues and having these knee problems and different things. And then Grant Hill, we know the story about him. He was supposed to be like the next Michael Jordan, but he had the injuries that set his career back as well. So, these injuries are tough. And then thinking about these injuries made me think about LeBron and how remarkable his career was or is due to him not really having injuries. He said, it was reports that he had back injuries early in his career, but he did, some training with it like a Navy SEAL, and he was able to get his back stronger. And, it hasn't been an issue for him throughout his career since then. But, you got people like Tiger Woods that did the military training because his father was in the military and, it messed up his back. And then he had the car accident that just exacerbated that issue. And, he hasn't been the same ever since either. And in golf, you can play a long amount of times, but his back just won't allow him to do so. And, it robs the fans and the audience of seeing remarkable careers, a Tom Brady-esque career. Like, unfortunately, Tom Brady had an injury earlier in his career, probably back in 2008, and he really didn't miss any games past that other than a 4-game suspension. But Tom Brady was lucky to have that, career expanding 40 years. I mean, expanding past his 40th birthday, like LeBron has. And it's very unique to see because most of our athletes fall victim to injury early in their career, even due to the advent of medication and all of those other things that have been invented to kind of circumvent those things. But unfortunately, Father Time is Father Time and it catches you. So hopefully Joel Embiid will figure out how to get around these injuries and find some peace and being able to stay on the court. Because right now, the 76ers are falling out of the playoff hunt and even in the play-in tournament. But Tyrese Maxey has been putting up crazy numbers, which will, bode well for the team in terms of morale. But Paul George hasn't lived up to the hype that they wanted as well. But he's an older superstar. I was a fan of his pre-Clippers days, the work that he was putting out there. And I think he was an underrated player and he didn't get the credit that he was deserved most of the time just because he lost a lot to LeBron, but everyone in the Eastern Conference did. If he was in the Western Conference doing the same thing, his career might have different perspectives on it. But nevertheless, hopefully Joel Embiid can figure out this injury thing, injury stuff, and then, prosper from there and eventually get an NBA championship. But until next time, I'll see you next time.